Welcome to sewing class. This is Annette Julie, and today we are working on a hand sewing sample. We just finished our running basting stitch, and now we're going to be working on a back stitch seam. So you have 3 of your 5-inch width by 12-inch length muslin swatches, and you have ripped and blocked them, and we're ready to start sewing. These are some of the tools you will need: your thread, your wax, your snipper, your little ruler, etc. And we're going to go ahead, take your muslin, and I'm going to grab a ruler, and I'm going to draw a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the full length of the swatch. There we go. Take that 1/2 inch, take your other large swatch, put that underneath, line up the edges, line up the ends. Let's go ahead and grab 3 pins. And a pin on the edge. I'm going to pin the top, then the bottom, and the middle. Prepared my muslin. Now I'm going to grab my thread. I have my needles. And it's great to always keep some thread in a needle if you possibly can. You can see it much easier. I'm going to use this big needle though. Doesn't have any thread in it right now, and we need enough thread. I like Gutermann thread to do this length several times. So I just took about 4 lengths and a little bit more. That's a lot. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab my wax. Oh, at the end I just snipped, or if I didn't, snip it again. Don't know which end it is. That looks nice and fresh. Run that through your wax, binding those ends together. Then take that needle, put that through the eye of the needle, and we're going to make 2-ply thread. So pull it so both the thread legs are even at the bottom. So I have both my thread legs, and twist them together. One knot, 2 knots, and 3 knots. There you go. Now let's trim that nice and close. Grab our wax and start from the knot all the way down to the eye of the needle. Okay? You can do that once or twice. I feel like I did a pretty good job, but you can do it twice. It's okay. Get some more on there. If you run out of wax while you're sewing, you can also do it in the middle. And now we have that prepared. So we're going to go ahead and make our back stitch seam, but it would be really nice if we had it marked to show how far our stitch is going to be apart. So I'm going to start marking, and just like I did with the other seam, I'm going to mark 1/4 inch seam allowances. 1/4 inch little marks on our seam allowance, excuse me. So we're going to go up, and I'm going to mark every 1/4 inch, and I remove the pin, drawing the line perpendicular on the seam allowance. Go back and put that pin in. We'll continue our way up. And since this is practice, you can use a pencil. You can draw with a pen. Remove that pin. And like the last video that I was doing, you can stop. You don't have to go all the way to the end with the marks. You can just try to practice and do some eyeballing when you get up towards the end. Okay, let's get that pin back in there. And we're going to grab our needle and thread. It's all prepared and waxed. And we're going to work on our back stitch. So we're going to go in. Okay, and I'm going to take out my pin. I'm going to remove it, or place it up here if you like, up further. And I go up exactly 1/4. Pull it all the way through, make sure you don't get any knots. And then we're going to come back to our original stitch and come up. So we've made one full circular stitch, but now we're going to go up not the 1/4, we're going to go up a 1/2 inch. So we're up to the next mark. And instead of coming back a 1/2 inch, we're only going to come back a 1/4, but we're not going to go and use the same hole. Go right next to that hole, not using the same hole. Try to go right next to it, but in a straight line. We've only gone back a 1/4, and that's the back part. So let's repeat that step. Those steps, we're going to go up a full 1/2 inch, and now we're going to come back 1/4. Don't use that same hole, but try to have that be in a straight line. Pull that through. We'll go up now a full 1/2 of an inch, so this is overlapping. And we're going to come back 1/4. This is the back stitch seam. This is a very sturdy seam in case you have ripped your pants out in the inseam or outseam or rise and need to repair something and you don't have a sewing machine. This would also be good for the hem of a costume. But only a costume. Because it's sort of thick. There's a lot of thread. This would be good for a costume used over and over again. If you don't have a sewing machine. Or you'd like to sew by hand. So we're going back 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going forward a full 1/2 of an inch. Coming back 1/4. And even though I gave myself a huge amount of thread, if I don't make it to the other side, that's okay. I can just start with more thread in the middle of the seam. I'm going to go back 1/4, forward 1/2 inch, forward 1/2, back 1/4, forward 1/2, back 1/4. We're working on the wrong side of the fabric. Both of these are the wrong side. The seam would be inside. Up 1/2, back 1/4, trying not to use the same hole, going into a hole a little bit off to the side for the back there. We'll make it more sturdy. And we're going to repeat these steps until we get to the end. We're approaching a pin. And let's go ahead and remove that. Up 1/2. Back 1/4, I'd say we're a little bit more than halfway done our seam. And this is our back stitch seam because we have to go back for part of our stitching. Forward 1/2, back 1/4. Very sturdy seam. Now here we've run out of marks, but that's okay. We're going to eyeball things. So we're going to eyeball up 1/2. And back our 1/4. Up 1/2. And back our 1/4. Up our 1/2. And back the 1/4. Up that 1/2 and back a 1/4.